Okay, it's 8:04. I'll call the meeting to order. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
I have a couple additions to the agenda.
Okay,
In reviewing the minutes from the last meeting, there were two items we tabled to this meeting that aren't on the agenda. One being the hiring of a DDA attorney, and the other being the committee appointments.
so we'll add those under old business, A and B.
Makes sense?
What was the second one, Mary?
The committee appointments.
Thank you.
And I apologize because I didn't review the minutes until too late to get it to Caitlin in time to get it on the agenda, so that's
It's
fine.
okay. Was there a second?
I'll second.
Thad was the first. Mosher was the second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public comment? Hearing none. Approval of the August 14th meeting minutes?
I do have one correction for those, and it actually kind of corresponds to what I just talked about. Under 16D,
Which?
so the August 14th.
14th.
minutes, yeah. So it's like the last page, 16D. It says, the following discussion, there will be a motion by Lynn and supported by Bergstrom to the discussion of this item. The motion was actually to table it until this meeting.
Then I will move to approve those minutes.
Support. Mosher and Taylor. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approval of the August 23rd special meeting minutes? Is there a motion for the approval of the August 23rd special meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Linda and Bergstrom. Any more discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Committee reports, rising tide. Oh, I'm sorry.
Peers review.
Oh, I'm I'm sorry about that. Okay, approval of the July financial report.
I just have one question, and this is, it's just grates at me, is on the downtown dollars balance sheet, when it shows the outstanding liabilities, and we have numbers like $1,500, $16, $1,516 and 26 cents. Given that the denominations of our downtown dollars are either 20s, 25 or 10s, there's no way that we've ever done that. So I don't know how that ever got like that.
It may have been, because at one point there were fees involved, and
But that's happened within the last couple of years.
it's
Is
recent,
okay.
that by chance due to the credit card fees that we are charged when we run a credit card?
purchase them. That shouldn't be posted to that account, though.
That's the only thing that I can think
I'll
of that
check
would
with
have
the
But
sense.
again, the liability outstanding is based on
Right.
what the value of the
Right, the
box.
value of the
So
box, yeah.
It
I'll talk
indicates
to
that
her.
there was an issue in the past, but.
So Valerie, do you
And
want to
I guess
follow
I'm
up
just
with that?
asking that just to make
I'll
sure
be
that
happy to call
there's not
Connie.
an ongoing issue where something is being put in there that.
Right,
isn't.
it's just gonna be all.
Way to get into the weeds, Barry.
I always like these challenges.
Since we're talking about those, people know that I sell them in the store. Can I get more? Because people will start asking them now for the
Yeah,
holidays.
sure.
And since as I was standing waiting for the elevator, noticing the sign on Caitlin's door, you might want to update the sign to say that that's the location that you can get.
Moving Spirits is a location on that side.
Oh, it is already? Okay.
Yes.
Is Jack Pine, I know Jack Pine sells them.
Yes.
I was not on vacation.
Okay.
Okay,
In that chamber.
does Jack Pine take credit card?
Yes, they will.
I don't know.
But they purchase, they will, but they
Okay.
purchase them outright. Oh, and we can talk about it later.
They kind of do like the chamber does, they
Yeah.
buy a bunch and then resell them. So
Right.
they get the discount and then they can then incur a credit card fee or not, if they choose. I don't.
So someone can go in there with a
Yes.
credit card?
I
Okay.
believe the answer is
The
yes.
answer
but I'm
is
not
yes.
100%
Yeah.
sure.
I'll call up.
Val says yes, so.
Okay.
So I'll move that we approve the financial report.
Is there a second? Any more discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Rising tide?
Ben, you want to talk?
You're here, so. Although I guess the podium is not.
Yeah, I was gonna have that all day. Anyway, so as far as the projects we had yesterday, our steering committee meeting with the Rising Tide, we discussed, board training, an update on the economic development, an update on the branding, and then an update on the housing. For the branding, I just received the content from Ben Wardrow Monday night. I generally haven't had time to share with the community yet. I did ask him if he was able to develop the content that you guys gave me feedback for, about having a logo similar to the city. He's like, oh no, I sent you what you need at first, and then I will connect with Caitlin. It was Monday. I am not necessarily sure whether he'll respond this week or not, but he did say he was going to take care of the feedback you guys provided to hopefully design something for you guys. And then with the economic development, we had a discussion yesterday whether to know whether or not it was beneficial to have Joe Borgstrom come back to the community and talk to all the boards that are supposed to adopt the economic development plan. Out of the discussion, it was decided that it might be beneficial for him to come back and then all of you as community leaders to just have an opportunity to talk to Joe and just clear any doubts you may have about the plan. I know there were some questions between the suggested collaborations between, let's say, the County Visitors Bureau, the Chamber, the DDA, the city. How does that collaboration actually look like and the dynamic of realistically working together besides just saying it? So I do not know the dates of when he's gonna come here. I talked to Dan Leonard yesterday in the morning and he said that hopefully we'll try to have him in September so we can get moving in October. I know that Caitlin had done some work with the Chamber and the Visitors Bureau into kind of making recommendations to you all on projects to work together. I'm not sure what will be your, if you're gonna follow like that, if you're gonna wanna wait for Joe to come and cover any questions, it's really gonna be up to you as a board. With the housing, there's not really a lot of updates. I'm working on a lot of projects with her as it relates to the city. And then, what's the other project? Oh, the board training. So all of you saw that email that went on with the TIF and Johnny Langeli and whatever. There was a concern brought to my boss's attention, and the email being the backend writer is also the consultant for Rising Tide, whether they were going to be the ones delivering the board training or they were going to have one of their backend writer persons delivering the board training. As of right now, the steering committee asked to explore if there was another option of another firm doing it other than backend writer. I do not know if there's going to be funding to do that, but I'll hear once NBC lets me know. And then the last thing is on the facade grant, the Michigan Strategic Fund. The meeting is next Tuesday in Lansing, and then Caitlin and I are both in the call on Friday to kind of prep and understand what the process is going to be, what they expect, attendance, or anything. I'm sure that just Caitlin will brief you all on whatever they tell us. And then I think that's it, and then if you guys have questions for me.
I got two things to add.
Yeah.
The other is that Manistee Forward,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is the group that's intended to keep moving forward when Lizette leaves us. Can we get you this?
Yeah, so
That's, the first meeting of that is going to be the first week of October. It is going to be coordinated
Yeah.
by Mark, sitting in the audience. He volunteered for that, which I think makes sense. And we're going to start with the existing makeup of the steering committee and see where that takes us.
Yep, so it'll be like a space for everybody to be in the same room to discuss anything that is being worked, happening, even communication, anything that's affecting your community. It hasn't been decided whether it's gonna be a monthly meeting, a quarterly meeting, anything. It was getting longer yesterday than we should have had, so we also decided to bring a date so we can all discuss it together. Do we include other organizations? Do we wanna bring Filer into the table? Do we wanna bring the community foundation? Who else are we missing? But just to have a space to have ongoing communication. It was agreed for the meeting to be October 8th. I don't remember at the time, but I'm pretty sure Caitlin and Barry will be there with us. The other thing we also discussed is that we're generally going to use a lot of those Rising Tide documents and strategies. Barry made the suggestion of how do we make this official to be the guiding framework moving forward to use these documents as a reference of the work that is being done. So the city committed to adopting the documents officially on the council meeting in October. And then for me and Thad to work to have a solution of adoption for all of the other organizations, so Chamber, DDA, County Visitors Bureau, whenever you guys decide to hear, we'll use the recommendations from the Rising Tide document to also publish this resolution of adoption to kind of make it official as a community player.
I have a question.
Sure.
I mean, on that, are we considering that document kind of like a strategic plan where it's a living document, so we adopt it, and then part of what the committee would be charged with is when additions or changes would be made, the document would be adopted? Re-adopted?
Yeah, that's my expectation. And one of the things, I did a presentation last night at the work session to kind of get feedback from council, if there was any feedback to give or questions, because ideally, the whole point of that plan is to give some guidance, and then you can have it as a reference. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do absolutely everything that is out there in the exact time that it says it, but at least a framework to work with that you could go back and say, oh, we haven't completed this with moving spirits or with the outposts. Where are we with this? Yeah, so kind of a strategic guide moving forward.
Just curious.
Yeah. Am I missing anything?
Well, it really occurred to me when you were talking last night at the city council work session. Up until that point, I was thinking that what we needed to adopt was the economic strategy. But
The city's considering the
what
housing.
Thad
Yeah.
talked about really encompasses all of them. And I read the housing study last
Oh
night.
my God, you don't.
And there actually are DDA-specific action items in there, so it made sense for us to be, adopting at least those two. Branding's a little bit fuzzier as to what you adopt. I mean, that's
Yeah,
part of the
because the
process.
branding is.
But, I see that resolution is probably going to be the set of documents, not just the economic
And I know with the
piece.
housing, a lot of what she has is kind of like promotion of what we talked a few months ago, of like upper housing in the downtown, promotion of living in the downtown, and the economic impact of how people living in the downtown area. I don't remember, I think it was kind of in the realms of that. And then with the branding, I was talking to my supervisor yesterday in my check and call as to, I think it was easier for me to ask the question of what is the expectation of these organizations as it relates to the branding? Like what, if we put it in a sentence, what do we hope for the communities to do with the content? Ideally, the organizations will adopt it, and it sounds like they're not hoping for everyone to use everything at the same time, for it to be each organization position. If you want to pick up the tagline, you can pick up the tagline. If you want to pick up whatever, just part of the logo or one of the logo, not as a whole, but at least use some of the material in general. And then, yeah, I think that's it. I'll get back to you guys on the Michigan Strategic Fund thing and the delivery of the grants, because I'd like to go and receive the grants since I worked on it. I'm excited to put in my resume since I'll be looking for work in 3 months. So I'd like to talk to you also about either traveling with Kayleen, so we can have share travel expenses to do it, but it would be beneficial for me to write that down in my.
So your call's on Friday?
Yes.
And then
The meeting is on Tuesday, yeah, but I don't know if it's mandatory. I know they said, oh, recommended attendance, whatever, but
Let's go for be there.
yeah.
Go.
And like I said, they never said, here's the $100,000, but I just, why would they call me, make me go there to tell me you didn't get it? You know, I can pretty much.
Maybe that's what the call on Friday is.
I think that's it, what I have for you guys, so. thank you.
Actually, having been to many of those, the NSF just wants to have the local community
Yeah, and it would make
represented.
sense.
You're going to take 30 seconds and say how great it is, what positive impact it would have. And the staff normally makes the presentation to the board. And if they ask you to be there, it's a done
I
deal.
don't.
95% of the time.
I'm ready to put it in my resume.
And I'm just gonna say this just because I tend to act as the board's historian, but going back a decade ago when we got Main Street status, it was Cindy Fuller and I don't know who else went with her, but they wore their Victorian outfits to receive the designation.
No, there's no one.
Fortunately, the new branding doesn't include that, so we're off the hook.
I think I lost my Victorian outfit.
It's not necessary.
Just budget for that, no. I have one other kind of comment or question. You know, since Rising Tide has started, I think those meetings have pretty much been restricted to whoever was on the committee. And I think that if you want something to be really living, I think a format more like this where people can sit in and make public comment at the beginning and the end of Rising Tide. So for example, if one of us had a specific interest or was going to be involved in housing, we might sit in, even though Barry and Kayla and I know do a fantastic job, but just to have a better understanding of what's going on. I think public comment is a nice, this is, you know, a bunch of, I think it might make it more forefront in the community. It gives everyone, not just people that are sitting here, an opportunity to speak or give their comments. So I'm only going to make that suggestion. I think it might help it continue and be a more vibrant organization.
And I think I brought it up, and I mean, I brought it up in the beginning because when I started here, Barry was asking me that question. And I think that the reason why they decided originally to make them close meetings with whomever those people were in the committees is because, to be honest, whenever the communities were selected, the conversations were about what are all of the things that we're sucking at. And it was probably going to be a very weird meeting to make public, to have people come in and hear, oh, here, we're terrible at blah, 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 and that's what we're receiving assistance or whatever. I know that was the original concept of why they made it closed. I do think that with the whole Manistee forward, since it's going to hopefully be the same group of community leaders, eventually we'll have to work together. I don't know, you know, a way to invite people or invite Ashley from the news advocate to put out there whatever is being discussed that is important of community knowledge. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful suggestion. It's something that could be considered for this Manistee forward thing. If we wanted to legitimize it even more with the work that it's doing. Yeah.
Mark, did you want to?
If I could be recognized for just a second, City Council yesterday, and Tad, you may be able to fill in some blanks on this, but the city is taking a leadership position to adopt a resolution in support of the plans and moving Manistee forward. And so I think that other boards and bodies are going to be looking at those types of resolutions in an October timeframe, so it could be appropriate for you all to consider that as well.
I don't know when I'll have it ready or that, and I have to get it going, but I'm pretty sure the ones we do, you'll all see it and give feedback.
And if I could ask Caitlin, could you, once we get the final branding, send to the board well in advance of next month's meeting, because everyone really needs to read them all, and it's not quick because going to be adopting them, and we should all know what's in them.
Any other questions for me?
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Design, Barry?
The minutes from our last meeting are in your packet. We ran out of time, only got through about half of our agenda. But just, quickly going through things, the parking signage, I know that at this meeting, Jeff Coolidge said that the signs have been ordered. Staff had worked through, I had kind of given a signage plan of the locations, and they kind of finalized that exactly how they were going to do it. I haven't seen them go up, so I don't know status of that. We'll probably get more in our meeting this month. This next one is we've been carrying on our agenda the MSU project, where we had that project on, kind of a visioning thing. We've just been carrying it. We're not doing anything right now with it, so we decided that we would be dropping that off of our ongoing agenda. I hate doing that because then it's another study sitting on a shelf, but there are a variety of things that we are trying to incorporate from that into various projects. But again, it's still hard to say, hey, look, we're going to go set that on the shelf. I just wanted you to be aware of that. Downtown refuse, we've got an agenda item later on that for the budget, but basically it's still going through the city process. I think it's in the ordinance committee now. Is that correct?
No, it's.
Not yet?
No.
Okay.
No, it's, they reported out on Wednesday.
Okay, so we're past that. Okay.
We're
Okay.
going to further discuss it in October.
Okay. Now this is actually, so as it relates to Project Bloom, which we talked about in our closed session last month. Since that potentially involves changes to the parking structure or the parking lot that we own on the riverfront, Laura Heinzelman was there and gave us a presentation of Community Foundation activities and funding. Actually, I think we were the first groups that she announced the fall funding round too, since that was coming out that day. But she did mention that they have mini grants that you can apply for any time. So we said, let's apply for a mini grant to see if we can get a concept plan as to what we would do with riverfront space that's not a parking lot. That's in the works. American Cleaners, nothing different than what we already talked about here in this meeting in the past. So that's all I have to report. Actually, there is one other thing. Hopefully everyone's happy with the condition of the downtown flowers. For me personally, I've never seen them look this well, good into this late in the season. Really thanks to DPW for everything they're doing. They're doing a great job watering them. I think that was it not only saved us money, but they're actually really doing a good job as it comes to watering the flowers, which is, because I think previously they just stopped watering after Labor Day and then they just let them die. And, when it came to hops and props, were we gonna have flowers or not? And, so, that's good. We at the committee level have decided, and this kind of ties into some of the economic development strategy. There's an item in there that talks about shoulder seasons. It's really more targeted at CBD type things. But, great looking summer, great looking from last part of November to the first week of January, and then nothing the rest of the year. So we're gonna do a little bit this fall. So when the flower baskets come down, we're gonna put up a few, not a whole bunch, I think a total of 28 baskets of mums, primarily at the intersections. We're gonna leave up the banners so that hopefully between flowers coming down and the holiday decorations going up, we'll have something that is there. And then, and I really haven't even talked about this with the design committee yet, but I will mention it here because I plan to talk about it at our meeting next week, is my goal would be that come when the decorations of holly come down, that we put up new banners reflecting the new brand. And that'd be our winter, spring, and then come next summer, we get back on our routine.
And that's transition.
Got to figure out where the dollars from that might come from, because it's not in the budget, but I think given our role in rolling out that brand, we have the unique ability to do some physical things, whether it be the banners. Our sign on 31 is another example of something that, you know, at some time frame should be looked at, what the budget dollars allow. But I think we can take a pretty active role in some of those branding items. So that's my report for.
I just have a quick question. Some of the other things that are in the budget, like the paver work, painting, trash cans,
Yes.
has all that been completed or?
No, none of
Okay.
it's been completed. We're maybe bottlenecked by Caitlin's time right now.
Okay.
She's working with Jeff McCula on putting RFPs together for all of those things. So they're in the
Okay.
process with the pay.
Just curious, since I kind of looked at the budget, is the
Yep.
other issue. Thank you.
And that he gave a list of things we didn't get to in the last meeting. So.
That's fine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Excuse me, any questions for Barry? Any marketing and promotions? Karen's not here. Caitlin, do you have anything? Did you and Karen meet regarding the, okay. Business development, Valerie?
Okay, I tried to include a lot of information in the notes to give everyone a better idea of kind of where we're at with the project. But we did secure $2,500 commitment from Wishful Bank last night. So that's a positive for us from a sponsorship perspective, which has been primarily what Caitlin and I have been working on, meeting with individual organizations, contacting some people that we think might be key players. We've gotten feedback from our speakers, and even though it has been minimalistic, just reviewing those documents, we've managed to get some additional comments. So we're moving ahead, and I think it's going well. We're also working on retention, and I think Caitlin has started some of her retention visits, but we're continuing to work on that process. And she, of course, by doing those visits, she gains valuable knowledge too. So, any questions?
Economic development, Karen's not here.
I will say though that if I may comment, last night Karen did send a communication to Filer Township kind of expressing where we were at, mentioning that Caitlin would be contacting them. So she did contact Terry Parks, I believe, from Filer, and I don't know if you saw it too, Barry, because you're in the committee. Okay. But I thought that was a good update for them, because I think Caitlin hasn't made contact yet, or it's been a little bit difficult, but I think they weren't sure where we're at, and I think that kind of solidifies it. So she wrote a very nice memo to Filer. So I thought that was, I'll just mention it since she's not here.
Tiff, T?
Yeah. At the last meeting, I reported that the TIF plan that we received in August from Megan Rader, a reduced amount of TIF capture in the previous versions. And also, we went from a 30-year capture to 20-year. Therefore, the available TIF over the 20 years is substantially less than what we worked with some time ago, back in July. As a result, in late August, the TIF committee and the director, we met, and we reevaluated the projects that that the DDA can do over the 20 years with the projected TIF amount. And we also prioritize projects and expenditures for projects over the first 5 years, the second 5 years, and then the 10 years. So the draft table that I just passed around has the projects which, for the most part, have not changed, but the amounts available have changed, and they're organized in 3 columns, 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years. And so the available TIF, according to the August version of the TIF plan, is a bit over 5 million. Anticipating that most likely there will be more TIF available in those 20 years based on our understanding of projects coming up that were not in the horizon earlier on. And we rethink that budget, and what we have in front of you in the draft form, this is going to be incorporated in the overall TIF plan, has about 8 million in projects for the 20 years. You see that some projects and programs now have $0 allocation, property acquisition, the electric charging stations, anything on Washington Corridor, eliminated the farmers market, and the infrastructure maintenance item. So this is the budget that we will include in the TIF plan, the revised TIF plan that Caitlin is going to be working on. And then the TIF committee will go over it, and then we'll bring it here. I hope it's going to be in October for action by this board prior to submitting to council, the city and council. Questions?
Well, I was there, so I don't have questions.
But I was going to say thank you for the work that's been done.
Yes.
Well, a couple things I will point out, even though they're not questions, is when we went through this, we really thought about every item on here ties pretty directly to an item in the Rising Tide Economic Development Strategy, whether it be placemaking, Riverwalk, that's falls into that placemaking category. Some of the redevelopment things. So we really thought about, and whether we get the time or not to put that into the actual TIF document, I don't know if we'll do that, but I think everything we do from this point forward, we should be thinking about how does this tie back into those strategies that we'll hopefully be adopting next month. So I wanted to point that out. And two is if you look at, as Tini mentioned, the total is $8 million, but there's only projected $5 million of capture.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't do 35% of
Sure.
what's on here if revenues don't grow faster than is predicted. I think the numbers used in the TIF calculation for the annual increase, what was it, 0.25%?
Correct.
It's 0.25% for 20 years. I think that's low, artificially
Sure.
low. And it also basically assumes no new development. So,
Right.
there's lots of things that can happen to make it more than 5 million. 8 million, is that a stretch? Hopefully not. But, so I mean, there is that difference. But the other thing I wanted to point out is a lot of what is on here, Riverwalk, 1.3 million, Streetscape, 1.4 million. Those two in particular, I mean, that's, 2.75 million. That's, a good chunk of that total is going to maintain, and I use that word maintain, what does that mean? Infrastructure that we've previously paid for that's coming to the end of its life. So, we've got, close to $3 million here that's going back into infrastructure that the DDA has, built in the past. And so, and I mentioned this last month in the previous TIF committee meeting, and at that meeting, Jeff McCullough was there on the city's behalf. We had a good conversation around what role should the DDA play going forward. And in that meeting, we made a fundamental shift in philosophy, and that basically said we should be on the hook to maintain, from a capital perspective, things that we originally built. So we're going to replace things. We're going to, pay the $3 million it's going to take to do this. Previously, we'd always assume, hey, we built it. It's the city's responsibility. You figure out how to do it going forward. In exchange for that, we're basically now saying that we're not going to be participating in routine day-to-day type maintenance. And we're roughly saying, if it's under $10,000, that's the city's responsibility. If it's a capital thing that needs it, if it's the big ticket items, we will, do that. That's a fundamental shift. I don't know, it probably hasn't been run up the chain of city staff yet, but that's what you're seeing here, is really that realization that we're going to pay for the capital amount of things new and old, but we're not anticipating to be paying for maintenance routine stuff. So, I just wanted everyone to understand that that's what the TIF committee is coming forward, and I suspect there will be some negotiations around those philosophies with both staff and city council eventually.
Point of clarification, in case you wonder, the red highlighted items are directly tied to the rising tide table. And then all of the other items are indirectly supporting the programs in the rising tide.
Yeah, thank you. Guys are doing a lot of work. Thank you. Any questions for T? Okay. Director's report?
Next Tuesday, not the 15th, the 17th, is when I will do my semi-annual report at City Council. I plan on doing a quick summary of the 6 goals and the major points that I've done since I started in here in June. The goal is to have 2 meetings, or do 2 presentations at City Council per year. So originally we used to do it every January, and we're looking at doing it March and September. That way I can give them kind of this midsection 6 month between, I can give them our mid-review between our 6 month goals, since we're going from June to December. You also notice that audit is on there twice, and that's probably because it's twice as exciting. It was a really good experience for me, not only because I learned about doing yearly audits, but I learned a lot about our office and the 4 directors that were in charge of financial paperwork in our last financial year. So I feel more confident about some of the things that I found in the office during that time that I haven't been able to spend a lot of time going through before, finding things on events, finding things on sponsors, some insurance paperwork, so it ended up being a really good experience.
But if I could just point out, she said something very fundamental there. We we've had 3 directors in our last fiscal year. So she's having to piece together an audit, not from her and someone else, but go kind of 2 people. It's, you know, kudos for all the work you're putting in on that.
Tyler, Tom, family, me.
Even me, unfortunately,
Okay.
because I kept 3 months of records. It grew, I mean,
It was a good experience.
I was certainly, I just point out volunteer though.
I had one thing that was to have the 3 of them so active still though was incredible. For me to be able to contact them and each one of them give me quick responses or be able to come to the office was, I know in any other position, any other department, at any other time, I wouldn't have had that. So that was incredible getting through that week. So thank you to all of my assessors. One thing that was really helpful for me in the reporting for the PA 57 was attending the MSU Extension's Fiscally Responsible Communities presentation that was in Mount Pleasant this past month. It was like a 3 or 4 hour seminar, and they went over all the technical terms that goes into the reporting. So it was actually, I was the only TIF committee there, but it really helped me have a better understanding of some of the fiscal things that they're looking at. I've talked to a couple of the board members about, I'm talking to Travis, our treasurer, and he's assuming that I know some of the terms and some of the paperwork that goes into being involved in this kind of cemented it for me. So it was a really great seminar for me to attend, and there's a second one coming up that I plan on going to, which is a follow-up to this.
The Treasury create any new forms, reporting forms that they have provided?
Nothing new from
Okay.
when I started here, thankfully. For Spark, we've met with both Jamie and Brian. We're really excited about doing a 1-year video of Jamie, so we came up with a script and a timeline for what we're kind of looking at, and we're hoping to promote that for when application opens, which will be September 18th. We've decided that with the feedback that we got from last year and some conversations that we had with Tommy Wynn from SCORE, that because our prize or large sponsorship is just $5,000, we're keeping the application relatively similar to years before. Our goal or intention at this moment is to fund or to give the resources to start business ideas. Some of the comments that we got from last year was looking for some more strategic things to help with scoring, and we do still kind of have that, but we are going to make the application more specific. We really do want to support the ideas, and we can do that with the $5,000 cash, the opportunity for the $5,000 revolving loan, and then up to $5,000 in these donated services to help get the business started. So those are some conversations that make me feel more confident in being established for this 2020 year. As Valerie said, we're still looking for sponsors, but we did just get acceptance from West Shore to be a part sponsor for this upcoming year, which is going to be incredibly helpful.
I have a question on the video. Since Talk About It also was a participant of that and is now open, any thought of maybe including them just to kind of give it a little bit broader appeal? Or that's not the right word, but just showing the success of last year. It wasn't just one business, it was also somebody else that was part of that process that also is now a viable business. Just a thought I had.
I've reached out to them. They're super busy right now.
That's good, right?
Which is really exciting, and I've left my business card a couple of times. So I'm looking forward to hearing from them to see what their comments and feedback are, because I reached out to them about what their experiences were. Thankfully, with our top 5 people, we kind of go through a process with them. We like to meet them up with a counselor. We like to give them additional resources. We did the tour downtown last year. Was that beneficial at all to even our finalists that didn't win? Well, that's kind of the feedback that I was looking for. So hopefully I can hear in the near future.
And Liam, thank you for that suggestion. We were kind of structuring it after the Momentum Award videos that another community did, but we could do some acknowledgements of some of the other participants in that video, which would be nice. Because we're trying to keep the cost obviously down, so filming another group is probably outside at this point. But well, I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
For American Cleaners, we did the memorandum of understanding with them, saying that we were willing to partner and negotiate with them from our last meeting, and they're appreciative of that. It helps them move forward into applying for funding, and at that moment, that's where they're at. They haven't reached out about additional support in a different area. For the design committee, like Barry said, we are currently working on the inquiry for funding to do the conceptual plan for our river walk. We've had some really great conversations and hopefully some really good support for this capital improvements plan. Conversations have included, we're doing our aspect, are we going to have part one that's just the south side? Are we going to have a part two that includes the north side? Are we going to have a part three that just starts but just does the emotional support for the rest of it that isn't in the DDA district? That way we can receive additional partners and additional funding for the project, knowing that it's one large project as opposed to a divided project. We are talking to Jeff about bike racks because we've had conversations. What can we do? What are our options? A lot of cities in northern Michigan, it's been really fun to have conversations with them, the creative ways that they're getting around having them implemented and also taking them off of snow removal. These are conversations I'm not used to, so it's actually kind of fun. And their comments. So I'm collecting a series of notes from other DDA directors that I've talked to about projects like that. For Project Rising Tide, Lizette is doing an awesome job kind of managing and closing up some of her pillars for this upcoming year. From the Economic Development Committee that said I support to move forward with our economic development strategy. I did have the opportunity to meet with both the Chamber and the CBB, and we had an awesome meeting. We talked about our conversations that we've had with Joe, what our understanding is moving forward. We brought the tables out. We talked about the projects we would do at the tables, and it sounds like we've got the three of us are really excited about moving forward and that these are the projects, and we're setting, Mark is going to kind of coordinate our future meetings and get us kind of started on getting some of those projects done. Hopefully Joe will help clarify some additional questions that came up from that meeting, just for immediate type things. For branding, and this is a question that I wanted to ask, we haven't received the information from Ben yet, but my understanding is that we do want to have something and do it relatively soon, especially if we are looking at the next spring. And maybe this is a conversation for another time, but I'll just throw the idea out there that if Ben does supply some of the different formats for us, but indicates that this is as much that he's willing to do for our timeline purposes, if it's worth us sharing the formats and then having them locally created for a sister logo or a sister format in some kind of shape or form. So I'm not looking necessarily for an action, but just throwing it out there timeline-wise, if that's something that we want to create to take the pressure off. Okay, wait. Go ahead.
I've already had a conversation with Right Side Design, and through some arm twisting, they're willing to contribute some of their time to help us out.
Awesome. Thank you. And I have reached out to Filer several times, and we're hoping to set up a lunch here in the near future. We haven't gotten a time and date that would work best for both of us, but I sent her an outline with my gazillion questions for Tamara, and she wrote back saying that she looks forward to meeting and going through those bullet points with me. Business development retention visits have started, and it's been really exciting. I started handing out business cards kind of on the south end of the district when I was running errands. It was really cool to walk in and people didn't know what the DDA district was. So it's been fun just to explain who we are and that we're in the area, and that I look forward to meeting with them and it kind of looks like an untouched corner. But I'm excited to have some additional people involved and show them that we're here as a resource for them, and may have not noticed right away. We've been doing a lot, this should have been kind of in the intro, and we're gonna kind of talk about it later too. We've been looking at the budget, and there's some things that we indicated in past meetings that we'll have to adjust in the future that we haven't adjusted yet. We still have committee names that need to be changed over, but we're gonna go into this a little bit later. This is something we're trying to figure out, work on. Is in March, we had determined that we were gonna carry funds over from last year's budget to this year's budget for capital improvements plan for the trash corrals. We're just starting to get the invoices in it, but we haven't changed it in the budget yet. So one of the things that I'm gonna ask for today is that we do make that transition over so that we can continue that project. And then the third thing we did with the budget this past couple of weeks was our facade grants. Spicer did turn in their invoices and have completed their project, and it looks super sharp. And I'm hoping to kind of create a little project packet. I just got that information last week. So we transitioned some of the funds to include not only theirs, but our new Elks project that we did last week.
Any questions?
Yeah. Did you get a chance to attend any of the city staff meetings that you talked about? Like
The first one I was
just
gonna be able to make was canceled.
Oh,
Short one, sorry.
No. But I had the couple weeks leading up to that, I had my meetings scheduled already, so it's in my planner, and I'm excited to attend.
Any other questions for Caitlin? Thank you. Okay, old business. A was hiring of the DDA attorney. We had brought this up a couple months ago. And a couple of the reasons why this was brought up is because of Project Bloom and the American Cleaners, to get advice on sales, transactions. So there was some discussion a couple months ago about this. Is there any comments or suggestions?
Just a question, what I thought we normally use the city attorney for legal issues.
And we have, and there are people that are uncomfortable with that.
Also,
for some items, not for
I think I had mentioned, I mean, I didn't mention last time, but I think the only time that I had kind of felt like it might be helpful for us is, I know I ended up getting involved with, and some of this is routine type things, but for our revolving loan program, we had quite a period of time to get the document. In other words, I needed something for them to sign to issue the revolving loan, so we had loan commitment, and I was having to call regularly because it was presenting a new business owner from opening. And that's kind of not a tough project. It's usually kind of a cookie cutter thing, but it took me like 3 weeks to get. And so maybe that sometimes there's opportunities to use other people for small projects like that, because the DDA does pay for those items. So I'll only share that, you know, obviously the city attorneys are very good and very capable, also very busy. And so, you know, that would be a low priority item for them. And so there might be some other local people, especially in our DDA district, that might be able to serve as a resource in those kinds of areas too. Might be able to respond faster.
Rachel, this item was not in the agenda. Is that something that?
It was added.
Oh,
It was
Barry,
added
I'm
by
sorry.
Barry.
Okay.
When I reviewed the minutes, it was mentioned that it was tabled to this meeting, so,
Along the committees.
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't be here.
Should have probably said that when you came in.
so my only concern is we're going to take on an additional cost presently have. That's my real biggest concern.
My understanding is that we get billed for all of our time. to
We do.
use
We do.
services.
Yes.
It's not an additional cost because they do bill us.
I guess mine
fear.
What's
related.
that?
I said that relays a fear.
Not unless you think we should be getting services. Then I'd be more than happy to.
No, I wasn't entirely certain of the arrangement.
I-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure any of us know what the arrangement really is.
Well, any clarification would be helpful, but I do know that, for the particular item that I requested, we were definitely billed, went back and checked, and we've regularly been billed for
And that's,
services.
and I think that was another concern that was brought up a couple months ago was the cost of the services. So was there opportunity to look at other firms in the area that would not be as much?
Is there something, a document that says that we can't hire an attorney if we want to?
I don't believe so.
No, the only thing is, in order to hire someone, then we have to go through a formal procurement process. So
Yes.
that adds, quite an administrative burden, how far out we advertise, and we're going to have to write RFP or RFQ. That's,
Well, that's exactly what we did when we secured our accounting firm.
yeah.
And, we always give, according to our policies, first, in other words, if we hear somebody from our district, they get first priority, then the city, then the county. So when we're reviewing those RFPs, we have to take that into consideration. So it's highly, that's why I guess I mentioned it might be even somebody in our downtown district that has the opportunity to assist. So, all the attorneys in the area, but sometimes it might be worth that effort, and an RFP isn't that difficult to write. I think we could go back and look at the types of services that we've paid for in the past pretty quickly by looking at old invoices and have a good sense for the type of services we might need or require. And we might find that, but, I certainly, as you said, it requires effort.
Yeah,
And so
however,
it's a decision.
we can look at the contract, which is a retained contract, if I understand correctly, for routine issues. We can look at that kind of as a start. And then, if I remember correctly, when the last time I saw the city's contract with for legal services, it also included kind of a time and material charges for services for things that were beyond what's included in the retained list.
Right.
So we can look at that. Plus, we can limit it to what we can limit the services that we may want to procure. I would be, happy to participate in putting together RFP.
I guess I just question the need for it. Is there something pressing that we're needing additional counsel for? I mean, I think I'm looking in the right spot here. Legal fees thus far are $1,000 this year.
Yeah, well, that's in a very
That's-
short period of
yeah,
time.
it's
It's
in
the start of
July.
fiscal year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I question the need, but
And I don't,
Bert-
Is
Balance
there something
with the
other
effort.
than a timeliness? Because I mean, that could possibly be addressed just calling the city attorney and saying, we need to, the word please, or that, I don't know.
Do we want to,
well, I think that you have said that you've had some really great support from the city attorney recently. So I don't want to throw daggers
Right.
and imply that but I know for that small project, and I can easily see where, that wasn't a top priority for for them. the other types of business that they handle, but, you know, it's a cookie cutter kind of form that you just, are you gonna follow me in 3 weeks was a long time to wait. I'd be happy to talk to him about it.
Yeah.
I also kind of figured out how to navigate the system a little bit better after I was done and actually called his assistant and got faster action in the end. Are you following me? But
I just hate to cheat on, you know, one bad experience.
Right. But I did want to at least share that so that people would understand.
Well,
where I was
Okay, you're
coming from.
Yeah,
if we're going
relationship
to
with
do
George is
this,
fine.
we need to start the process, because if we need something next month, we're not going to have someone on board next month, okay? So it's going to take, I would say, good with advertising and so on. It's going to be at least 90 days. So, so there are two questions. One is,
My
do we
thoughts
need
are,
someone?
Mhm.
you know, anytime you have an ongoing service, you should periodically put it out for bids.
Yes.
Now, if we consider that our services really fall under the city's agreement, they do that then for us, and we don't necessarily need to. But if we're paying all out of pocket and we're not really getting any benefit of that agreement, you know, we probably should understand more about how the city's agreement applies to us and doesn't apply to us. So I think, depending on how that actually is, I think it would make sense for us to, you know, every 5 years, we should have a plan to do something like this. I question the timing, because I know there's an awful lot on your plate right now, plus you've got a steep learning curve that you're in the middle of. Throwing something else at you, I don't think right now we have the need, as Kyle is saying, to make a change. But, you know, I'd like to see something maybe in the next year that takes us down a path to reevaluate this.
Well,
And possibly, I think it's a good point, we should look at all of our contractual relationships and maybe put them on a timeline of a 5-year review so that we're not doing everyone at the same point. You know, for example, a couple of years ago, we did accounting, et cetera.
And I also think that maybe we should just back up and try to understand the relationship first, and let's understand what the expectation is, and,
I was just suggesting, Keelan, number one, as you said, talk with Ed, probably be the best contact. I know what the relationship is, you know, the length of the agreement that we have, we call them vendors of record. And find out if that's an ongoing relationship. A lot of our agreements are 5 years, and it can be renewed for 5 years if both parties agree. Find out about that. You know, and maybe that is going to help us understand.
So how about we leave this on the agenda, and then next month you will get back with us on that working relationship and that agreement that we have.
If you can get a copy of the agreement, that would be good.
So we'll just keep this as an agenda item for next month. Okay, committee, any more discussion on that, comments? Okay, committee appointments. My first question is do we want to continue with the committees? Because some of the feedback that I have heard is that there's committee meetings, and some of the people that attend don't really participate or are active. And it's really a few people that are doing a lot of the work at the committee levels. So I have a meeting with, 5 or 6 people. So the first question I would have to the board is, do you even want to continue with the committees? Or instead of committee reports, we could have project reports?
Go ahead, sorry.
I feel like at some level there needs to be some subcommittees. I'm not sure that a lot of these are handed down names from the Main Street program, which I'm not sure if that's necessary, but I think, first we'll just say I think there's need for some subcommittees or project.
I just look at the economic development, whether, going forward, whether we need that, if we either engage with Myler, DDA or chamber or something, maybe that takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to consolidate it as much as we can. And the other thing I'd like to see, if we're gonna continue to have committees, if we could get their minutes on a regular basis in the packet, because I think, you know, it's incumbent on a board member to review the packet, and then we don't have to spend time discussing it at each meeting. It might be a little bit more efficient.
Kyle and I talked about having the committee reports going back to a consent
I
agenda.
agree.
But I know that some people feel that some of the committees, there's a lot going on, like design, and some things need to be explained and talked about at the board.
Well,
board
on
level.
a consent agenda, anybody can answer, they can
A
answer what
question.
you brought out, so if the committee chair thinks there's something that they need to add, they can pull it off. I think that's a great suggestion. Consent agenda.
So for next month, is everyone okay with making the committees just consent agenda and having the meeting minutes?
Yeah, I think, I know I support it, but I agree with the comments that have already been made that the meeting minutes need to be in the packet, you know, in advance.
Yeah.
In advance as in,
When
Those
the
parts-
packet's
When the
ready.
packet goes out.
I think they are though.
Not all.
Not all of them,
Okay.
no.
No.
Okay.
Design is usually in there and
design and business
in
development.
business development, but all the other committees, there's never meeting minutes.
Okay.
But, you know, now that I look at it, you know, could business development and economic development be one committee?
Yes.
Yeah, thank
Logical.
you.
Would seem logical. Yeah.
So we can just take.
If there's need,
Right,
yeah.
but I mean, I would think business development would just be a part of economic development.
That was two different committees. The Business Development Committee was Spark. The Economic Development Committee had the task of looking at
Partnerships.
partnerships. So those two committees were very different.
But the understanding was the Economic Development Committee was temporary.
Yes.
Once that.
And I think that one can go away because Karen gave her recommendation at last month's meeting and we all agreed on it and
So I think
So-
maybe for clarification for new people, we have standing committees. Those are design, marketing and promotions, business development. From time to time, when an issue comes up like that, the whole question about economic development, we have added subcommittees that maybe meet and report for a designated period of time. So economic development, that committee is an example of that. So it could come off the list, does not need a chair. At least that would be what I recommend. Barry, you're on that committee.
I would recommend, but then I think we need to, since an offer was put out to have a follow-up meeting with the Florida DDA, who would be attending on behalf of us?
Well, if you, and again, you'd have to see Karen's memo, but she said there was no need for further meetings, and then Caitlin would be contacting directly with Tamara.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So it kind of closed the loop a bit.
Okay.
so I would,
Then, yes, then I would agree.
But everybody doesn't know that because that
That
just
just went
kind of,
out.
yeah, last night, so.
I would suggest that we leave Project Rising Tide, Design, and Business Development in TIF. Marketing and Promotions, Caitlin gives that, she just gave the report for Marketing and Promotions in her director's report as far as working with the gentleman who is doing the logo. So that was right in her director's report. There's not a committee for that anyways.
So then as it relates to, let's take Hops and Props coming up, does that group working on that have any oversight? Or who do they, I mean, they're spending money. There's a lot of stuff there, and I just want to make sure there's enough structure in place. And maybe we just say that all falls under the director's responsibility, which I'm fine with, but then we're doing something else on its plate.
Well, she's already working with
I know.
Carrie and
I know.
myself on Slaybound regarding the invoices and the expenses. And I see all of the checks that go out, and we asked Carrie to start giving us more information on the expenses and the revenue that's coming in. So if everybody is okay with it, I'm okay with having Caitlin just oversee the hops and props and the sleigh ball expenses and
We're just down
revenue.
to two events, aren't we?
Yes.
I think that makes sense.
Yes.
And Spark, we do have
Yeah.
expenses related to Spark.
But National still have the committee overseeing that.
Right.
So Rachel, you were saying continue with Rising Tide.
Rising Tide, I would suggest stay on design and business development and tech.
business development.
And TIF.
Well, the TIF is going to go away.
And the
now.
TIF will go
And,
away.
yep, and hopefully that will
Release
get,
from us.
yeah.
So you're, okay, get rid of economic development.
And then I would suggest that it's the same chair of each committee. So you as design, Valerie as business development, Rising Tide, we just have Lizette give us an update. Barry, after Lizette leaves, will have you give the update if you're going to continue with the Manistee forward. Okay. And then,
Our bylaws also say that the chair should appoint all the members of each committee, and not just the chair. So,
well, that's my question to the board chair, or the, not the board
Right.
chair, excuse me, the chairs of the committees is,
well,
do you want these members?
for design, yes,
Okay,
each person is actively engaged in that committee, and I think, but that is the reason I like having it be formalized, that there are actually members of the committee, and then, yeah, public may come in and sit in a meeting, but in the past, it's been fluid, and people just show up and vote, and it's like, who is this person, and why are they voting? So I think it's important that those, and if, someone's not participating, it's an opportunity to say, okay, we're not going to reappoint you to the committee the following year.
so can I suggest that the chairs of the committees, it's basically design and business development and tech, email me the names of your members, and then at the next month's meeting, we just officially say it in the meeting. Okay.
The other thing that I've done is if I have an interim addition, I always run that by and get approval from Rachel, because sometimes you lose a member and you're trying to replace in another year, so. That's part of the
Is there,
process.
Do you want to list?
What I would prefer is that each chair just email me and you and confirm if you want all of these committee members or not. And then at next month's meeting, we will formally say who's on each committee.
is there?
Does that work with
That's fine.
everybody?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also am just going to bring this up. Succession planning is really important, and so sometimes, I'm fortunate now to have 2 board members on a committee with me, and so I think sometimes in a transition type time, we might want to talk about co-chairs, even getting somebody else ready who might be interested in it, because I have now held it for 2 years, and I just want to make sure that we don't have problems in the future. If someone were to decide they didn't want to go on, then, it'd be nice to know that we have people that could step in.
And I
Just a
think
thought.
all 3 of our events, Spark, Hops and Props, and Sleigh Bell need co-chairs also.
I'll mention this, and it may not be appropriate for this board, but in other boards, there's kind of an expectation that every board member is involved in at least one committee. And it's a bigger commitment than just coming to one meeting a month, that you're actually engaged in the committees. We don't necessarily have that policy or that process here for a larger board too, so we don't necessarily have enough slots to fill everybody in, but I think that's something I would encourage everybody to get involved and be on at least one committee.
It's very helpful, I think, and when you're doing consent agendas, there's more people that know and can answer questions.
Is there a regular marketing and promotions committee meeting?
No.
There has not been for a period of time.
Okay.
We just reestablished it at the last meeting.
And Karen volunteered.
Reestablished a meeting, the committee.
Oh, the committee.
Yeah, because of the branding. So, but I think you can just get that report in your director's report, because you did that today already. So we don't need another line item for it.
If we the need, we can always create something.
I mean, unless somebody wants to take on marketing and promotions. But
Last month, Karen volunteered.
that was
Yeah.
only, that was
That was
really only for to work with Caitlin and on the logo.
Are you sure though?
Well, I think there just needs to be, so when we adopted the Main Street program, there was the Downtown Merchants Committee. We took on the Downtown Merchants Committee under the DDA. So that kind of went away, but we put it under our
Well,
umbrella.
previously a chamber, but
Correct, yeah. So I just feel like if there's a desire by business owners or merchants to have a committee, I don't think it necessarily needs to be under the DDA. They can ask for assistance, and it doesn't need to be,
and I would say that is actually
That's
live
happening.
and it's ongoing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a merchant meeting every month that Shelley
Okay,
from
so-
the Ideal Kitchen organizes.
So we're not calling it the marketing and promotions?
No,
We're
it's
there
just
now.
the merchants
Okay,
meeting.
That's, okay,
And they have people,
We generally have a guest each month.
yeah.
okay. So there's an
Caitlin
organization that
speaks
exists.
at it,
Okay.
Jeff McCula has spoke at it, Chamber
That's great. I
spoke
just
at it.
didn't want there to be a departure and no communication. It sounds like this is already happening.
Yes.
So that's great.
Originally, when we had more events, there was a greater need for marketing and promotions.
Okay.
Okay, so we're good with committees coming back. Let me know that the members that you want on your committee, and then we'll just formalize that next month. Okay, that's great.
But just to summarize, we basically eliminated economic development and marketing promotions.
If the board agrees with that,
You want a motion?
I would make a motion, or someone make a motion, just so it's on.
What's the?
I'll make that motion. We eliminate marketing, promotions, and economic development because it's formal.
Any more discussion?
That.
Thad, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, new business, action, approval of Slayville warming tent. Does the board want a little update on Slayville?
It's gonna happen.
I'll just let you know briefly, the deadline to be in the brochure is September 12th. Everybody is aware of that. It's a very firm and strict deadline, and the reason why is because the graphic designer gives me that strict deadline. And then, so everything will go to the graphic designer on September 12th. Usually takes about a week of proofing, revisions, then it goes to print, and we should have the brochures done by the beginning of October. And then people from the Slayville committee hand those out throughout the community. Everything that we are paying for Slayville has a sponsorship. We're doing very well with our sponsorships. Again, we will have carriage rides on both east and west side of Maple Street. So we are asking the city and Chief Kozel and the DPW to close the streets at 9 o'clock in the morning. There is one particular business that is very adamant against that, but Chief Kozel has said several times it has to be 9 o'clock to get the cars off of the street. So when the horse and carriages come down for the rides at 11:30, 12 o'clock, that there are no vehicles on the street.
Is that from Division West?
It's the entire,
Well,
US to Maple or?
I think it's,
I don't-
I think Chief Colson wants the entire
we need to.
parade route.
I-
It's in the event request.
It's a division.
Yeah, we can't close.
Yeah, division,
From 31 to Division. Okay.
yeah, division to, it's pretty much the city marina. And I'm working on the event request right now, and I should have that ready to submit to Chief Colson in the city by the end of the week. But the action on the agenda is to approve the liquor license for the warming tent. Douglas Valley is the one that is the business that does the warm intent, there are already 3 or 4 sponsors for it, so we have enough money to cover the cost of it. And then Douglas Valley basically runs it and has their staff and volunteers working. So we just need an approval to get that liquor license so they can serve
What would be
wine.
the DDA's name?
Any liquor licenses, yeah. So we buy the wine from Douglas Valley. And then, but we also get the profit from it. It's kind of like it's almost a wash.
I'll make a motion that we apply for a liquor license for Warrington.
Support.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Consideration of executive director participation in the Manistee Area Leadership Program at $600, Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities, 85, Michigan Downtown Association Annual Meeting 225. Caitlin put this on here. I don't know if we need to approve things like that. I just said put it on there for this month, but I think that Caitlin should be able to make a decision on if she thinks a conference is worth her time.
I agree wholeheartedly, we've already approved the line item.
Yeah.
Right, we've got,
I
as we said.
I would agree with the conferences, but the leadership program, that's a bigger commitment since that's an entire year with
It's
multiple
one day,
days.
a month.
I think it's good for us to know about that, so I appreciate you bringing it to our attention, and I think it's a great opportunity there, and I love it.
Yeah, and I think the notification to Anthony, the director's report.
Yeah.
I just, I don't want to have her do more than she needs to. I mean,
Yeah.
if we budgeted this and we've got a training line item and she stays within it, it's perfect.
I would add that 600 is a discounted rate as well, right?
It's a $1,200 program. I applied for the scholarship. If I don't receive the scholarship, I'm not going to be on there.
I think it's a.
Well, from what I understand, they offer numerous organizations discounts if they're nonprofits, so it would qualify.
I'm not
Yeah.
comfortable with you
Yeah.
covering the other.
Yeah, I'm not
I
either.
would
Yeah.
too,
No.
So
You have to come back to us for $600,
If it costs
I agree.
more than that, let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can amend the
Yes.
budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't even think we need any action
No.
on this.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, approval to amend the 2019-2020 budget to fund 2 downtown trash containers in an amount not to exceed $80,000. As Caitlin said, we approved this in last year's budget, but we did not transfer the money over to this year's budget.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion?
I just want to be clear that what we're really doing is we're adding an expense item and then increasing our transfer from our fund balance by the corresponding amount.
Right.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public comment? Hearing none. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move adjourned.
If I could, last month we had said we were going to have.
Yes,
board member
that's supposed to
comments.
be on here.
No.
Yes. What was?
Yeah,
Board
we-
member comment.
Board member.
I do have a comment. I'm surprised.
You made sure that's
Sorry, oh, that's fine, sir. My comment is, one of the other boards I sit on is the county library. And you may or may not be aware that the state legislature a year or so past changed that libraries are now no longer subject to TIF capture. And apparently, the advice that the library is getting is that that's automatic. You don't have to do anything, it's automatic. So, but the library has a committee that's investigating whether or not they should continue to opt in to allowing their TIF capture. There are 2 DDA TIF districts, ours and Fowler. From what I hear, I'm not on that committee because obviously since I sit on here and Tamara, who's head of the Fowler DDA, is also a library board member, so the 2 of us are not on those committees. But from what I hear, committee discussions so far are that they're looking to opt out of the Fowler because there's really no relationship between library pilot, but because they do sit within our DDA district and potentially receive our services, there's potentially a reason that they might consider maybe at least partially opting in, not the full tip capturing some of it. But I know that there's a feeling that unless they receive a request from us and an explanation of the benefits we provide them, they're probably going to just fully opt out. So it's about $10,000 a year of our tip comes from that village capture. So if we would maybe want to retain some or all of that, we might want to request of them, or at least have a dialogue with them, like here are the services that your tip is basically paying for. Now, if they opt out, they'll still get them anyway, but at least maybe there's a little we can play on that. So I just want to put that out there from,
What's the timeline on something like that?
the decision will probably happen in the next couple of months.
So we should ask in the next couple of months. How do we go about doing that?
Yes.
It probably would be just directing Caitlin to have a conversation with the library director, or if she finds it appropriate to have something, done that maybe, so be it.
Sounds like that's sort of something that should happen now.
Would seem logical, just reach out to the library director and have a conversation, if we have to follow up with correspondence, that's good.
One thing I would suggest is look at the act and see if opting out is 100% or can be partial opting out. Some other programs has to be all or nothing. That's okay.
I think that's it, is all or nothing, but yeah, it's not a bad idea to review.
Any more board comments? Thank you.